You're watching Education for Health Professional Regulators of Ontario, colleges under the Regulated Health Professions Act. Richard Steinica is a senior partner of Steinica Mikura LeBlanc, and he practices exclusively in the area of professional regulation. Richard is a noted author of the Complete Guide to the Regulated Health Professions Act, which, because of its comprehensive nature, has been cited by courts and tribunals, even in cases dealing with non-health professions. Marshall Molesky is the past president of the Federation of Health Regulatory Colleges of Ontario, and he serves as Chief Executive Officer and Registrar of the Ontario College of Pharmacists. Join Marshall and Richard now as Marshall poses a number of important questions on behalf of those of us who want to know more about regulating healthcare practitioners in Ontario.
Richard, risk management has been a hot topic in recent years. How might risk management apply to an Ontario college?
It can apply in two ways. First of all, on an organizational level, having a comprehensive risk management plan is very helpful for colleges. This is called enterprise risk management. In addition, you can use risk management principles when you make individual decisions, policies, and develop processes. And so, for example, to use an illustration, should the college report potentially criminal behavior by practitioners to the police, you could apply risk management to that.
Give us a simplified explanation of the risk management cycle.
Yes, risk management is very much a cycle. So first of all, you would identify the risks that apply to your goals. Then you would assess those risks. Then you would find the best tools for addressing or treating those risks, and then you monitor and review your plan and go back to the starting the cycle.
Okay, but let's talk a little bit more. How can a college identify risks?
There are a number of tools that are used to identify risks, and for example, you could look at categories of risks: hazard risk, operational risk, financial risk, and strategic risk. For council members, you're going to be focusing almost entirely on strategic risk. The staff and registrar of the college will be managing most of the other risks. And so in the illustration we're using, should we report criminal behavior to the police? That's a strategic risk that if you don't do that, the college's reputation could be significantly impaired.
Okay, so we've identified the risks. How can a college analyze the risks?
There's all kinds of tools for how to analyze the risk. One of the most common tools is to look at the severity of the risk and the frequency of the risk to see into what quadrant it might fall. And so failing to report criminal behavior to the police could result in a very significant consequence if it becomes the subject of media articles and questions from the minister. But that's something that might not happen that often. And so it might fall sort of in the middle of the risk categories.
What are some of the risk treatment options available to colleges?
Well, there's 5 categories for risk treatment. One is to avoid the risk, which is very hard for colleges because a lot of what it does is stuff that it has to do. But in our example, if we could persuade the minister to take action on reporting criminal behavior to the police, then you would have avoided that risk. You could modify the risk. So if your concern is that by telling the police about the potentially criminal behavior, they're going to prevent you or interfere with your investigation, one way of modifying the risk is to do some preliminary investigation first before you tell the police. Then you could transfer the risk. Perhaps you could persuade the complainant to report to the police, or you could buy insurance in case you get sued for making the report to the police. Then you could decide to retain the risk, say, you know what, we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing and we will pay the consequences. And you could exploit the risk. You could say, hey, we have taken this new step. You could have a PR advantage to this, public relations advantage, and you could use the police investigation to enhance your own investigations into the conduct.
Can you tell us a little more about the implementing a risk treatment plan?
Well, like the strategic plan, it should have a written plan. There should be a communication strategy. You should have ongoing monitoring. You should be reviewing, reconsidering it. If there's any new information, you look for emerging risks or unexpected risks, and then you repeat the process again.
At the beginning, Richard, you talked about enterprise risk management and applying risk management principles to individual decisions. The example you've been using, developing a policy on reporting the conduct to police, is an example of the latter. Is that right?
You're right, exactly. And you can apply risk management principles to all kinds of individual decisions. So if you're making a regulation, a policy, or a standard, if you're doing a new operational initiative like going paperless, if you are reviewing one of your programs like the patient relations program, you can use the identification, assessment, treatment, and monitoring review cycle for those decisions.
Now, Richard, to be honest, you sound a little bit like an advocate for risk management. I understand that you are a certified risk manager, is that right?
Yes, it is, and I am a huge enthusiast for this. I would just say I think it's a great tool for regulators to use. You can use this throughout your entire organization. You don't have to do things. You don't have to do new things. You just can use this tool for the things you're doing already, like strategic planning and governance and management and operations. And don't overlook positive risks. Positive risks are called opportunities. The thing to watch out about for risk management is that you don't become risk averse. Risk management means accepting certain risks, not becoming averse to risks, and not using the risk management process to interfere with operations at colleges.
Thank you, Richard.